Hey there YouTube, Cory here from thephoenixenigma.com. Well, I wanted to start a new segment series on my channel about the crazy things people have told me while I've been on tour. As you can imagine, I've spent many hours with many people from around the world, and some of the things these people tell me are pretty unbelievable. I want to start with a story that happened about 4 years ago, coming back from the Grand Canyon, and I had a gentleman told me he was a chemical molecular geneticist while we were at the Grand Canyon, and I said, yeah, you're sitting up front on the way back. Well, for the next 3.5 hours, I proceeded to gently interrogate this gentleman, and we got into some crazy topics. He was South Asian, so I asked him if he was Hindu, and he said yes, he was, but he grew past his religion. I asked him if he's Hindu now. He said no, not really, but he understood the philosophical concepts of the core belief system of the Hindus. We got into genetics. I was asking him questions about the folk stories and how they dealt with genetics. For instance, the families are cursed for 7 generations. And he says, yeah, indeed, within DNA, it takes 7 years for specific types of genetic mutations to fix themselves again. So we were finding all these really cool correlations all the way down the line. And I asked him how he correlated his belief in a creator, because he said he did believe in a creator, with that of the science. And he told me something crazy. He told me that him and his fellow scientists, they splice DNA for a living. He gets in there and he cuts it and puts it together, and he says, you know, the things you hear about making blue-eyed children and making people taller and getting rid of genetic birth defects, he says, we're doing that. That's no longer science fiction. We're there. It's just going to be a matter of honing it down. He said, and the interesting thing is, when we get in there and we cut a specific piece of segment of DNA out, we put it back together again with the CRISPR technology. He says, we leave a scar, and we can go in there and we can see what had happened. And we can see where the guy before us came in and did his, monkeying with the DNA, and we can kind of track it back that way. He said the funny thing is that when we take virgin DNA that's been unaltered by us, we get in there and we find scars. At this point, I looked over at him and I said, what are you saying? He said, what I'm saying is someone or something put us together, put the human species together. I said, are you talking about God? And he said, you can call it God, you can call it aliens, you can call it Brahma. He said, you can call it whatever you want. That ain't my job. He says, I'm a scientist. What I'm telling you is me and my colleagues, when we go in there, we find within the DNA the mistakes, the cuts, the augmentations. And of course, I'm trying not to veer off the road at this point while I'm driving back to Phoenix. I look in the rearview mirror, and about 9 people on the tour are leaning forward, wanting in on the conversation. And we went on for another hour or two, and I'd asked them, I said, how come this isn't common knowledge? How come people don't know this? And he says, academia is a funny thing. You start talking about this and your opinions and theories on this within the context of the workplace, he says, and you're out. You're gone. We don't talk about this. He says, but I can tell you what, every geneticist, everyone who works with DNA will tell you what I just told you. He said, so you sound like a learned man, and you probably wanted to know that. And he says, there you go. That's what I got to tell you. So that happened. Anyway, do with that what you will. I find it extremely interesting that this guy opened that up to me. But anyway, Cory here from the Phoenix Enigma, signing off.